In the secretive underworld of organized crime, visibility is often considered a fatal flaw. The golden rule, etched in silence and survival, is to remain entirely unseen by both authorities and rivals. Yet, one figure chose to broadcast his every move to the world, turning a generational legacy of shadows into a dazzling digital spectacle. Why would a man, born into one of the most formidable syndicates on Earth, willingly flaunt a lifestyle that placed a massive, undeniable target firmly on his back? The story of Pasquale Barbaro is not just a tale of inherited power. It is a fascinating psychological study of the clash between old-world criminal codes and modern-day audacity. Pasquale's destiny seemed pre-written long before he ever made a conscious choice. Born in early 1981, he was the heir to a notorious Calabrian family whose roots were deeply entangled in the Australian underworld. His father was a prominent figure within an organization known for its rigid hierarchy and absolute insistence on the code of silence. Recognizing the immense peril that surrounded her husband's associates, Pasquale's mother made a desperate bid to alter her son's trajectory. In a frantic effort to sever his ties to this highly volatile environment, she relocated the young boy to Brisbane in 1983. For a fleeting moment, it appeared the child might escape the inescapable gravity of his lineage. However, the pull of heritage proved entirely too strong. By the tender age of 9, Pasquale was drawn back into the fold, reconnecting with the very patriarch his mother had tried to leave behind. This reunion served as an unofficial initiation into a clandestine world. Rather than a traditional childhood, his formative years became an extensive education in illicit enterprise. He absorbed the intricate mechanics of underground economies, learning the unwritten laws of loyalty, power dynamics, and the severe consequences of defiance. Yet, as Pasquale matured, a profound paradox began to define his existence. While his ancestors operated exclusively in the dark, leveraging fear through quiet, unseen influence, the young heir craved the blinding light of public recognition. He developed an insatiable appetite for opulence and excess, meticulously curating an extravagant persona online. To law enforcement and his peers alike, his social media feeds became a highly visible diary of luxury vehicles, designer wardrobes, and lavish excursions. This relentless need to showcase his dominance signaled a dangerous departure from the ancestral code, setting the stage for a spectacular collision between the ancient rules of the syndicate and the perilous exposure of the digital age. By the time most teenagers are navigating the mundane trials of high school, Pasquale was already standing before a judge. At merely 16 years old, his legal history read like the resume of a seasoned enforcer, boasting severe charges from armed robbery to illicit possession. This was not adolescent rebellion. It was a dark, familial apprenticeship. However, the Barbaro lineage carried a heavy, undeniable curse alongside its vast influence. The syndicate demanded an ultimate toll, and the family history was paved with tragedy. In 1990, his grandfather and namesake met a sudden, fatal end, reportedly as retribution for breaking the syndicate's most sacred vow and cooperating with authorities. A remarkably similar tragedy befell his cousin in 2003, while his uncle eventually received a staggering 30-year sentence for orchestrating an unprecedented international narcotics operation involving illicit substances concealed in imported tomato tins. The psychological message was unmistakable. The higher you climb in this shadowed hierarchy, the more devastating the inevitable fall. Yet rather than serving as a cautionary tale to step away from the brink, these familial downfalls only seemed to accelerate Pasquale's ambition. In the early 2000s, investigators launched a massive joint operation that finally cornered the young heir. Operating a vast synthetic narcotics ring alongside his father, Pasquale was handed a significant 9-year judicial sentence. To an ordinary civilian, nearly a decade behind bars is a life-altering wake-up call. To Pasquale, it was merely the accepted cost of doing business. Even while incarcerated, his illicit enterprises did not pause, resulting in additional convictions that kept him locked away from society until 2008. The correctional system failed to dampen his relentless pursuit of underworld supremacy. Stepping back into the free world, he immediately resumed his ascent, expanding his operations with a renewed, almost reckless vigor. By 2012, astute authorities were once again trailing his every movement, leading to a high-stakes arrest for large-scale illicit production facilities. But with a staggering 350,000 bail successfully posted, Pasquale was back on the streets by 2013, actively seeking out new, highly volatile alliances. He aligned himself with a notorious street faction recognized for its ruthless enforcement tactics, forging a formidable bond with prominent figures within the gang. This strategic partnership amplified his power exponentially, culminating in an extravagant harbor celebration that flaunted his seemingly untouchable status to the city. However, this newly consolidated influence brought intense, suffocating scrutiny from both law enforcement and rival factions. When a notorious extortionist lost his life under deeply mysterious circumstances in late 2013, the investigative spotlight turned sharply toward Pasquale's inner circle. The psychological pressure was reaching a boiling point. He was a man walking a razor-thin wire balancing a lucrative empire built on fear with a public persona that invited constant, perilous surveillance. As the walls of the syndicate began to close in around him, the young heir realized a terrifying truth. His immense wealth and dangerous alliances might not be enough to save him. What happens when the walls of a criminal empire finally begin to close in? For Pasquale Barbaro, the psychological toll of balancing a highly visible, extravagant public life with the dark, treacherous underbelly of the syndicate was reaching an absolute breaking point. He was a man cornered by his own relentless ambition, surrounded by heavily armed rivals, and haunted by the tragic legacy of his ancestors. In a world where unwavering loyalty is the only currency that truly matters, Pasquale made a calculated, astonishing decision. He chose personal survival over the ancient ironclad code. Following the perilous footsteps of his late grandfather, he committed the ultimate act of defiance within the underworld. He quietly began cooperating with the very authorities he had spent his entire life evading. This transition was not a sudden crisis of conscience. It was a desperate, strategic maneuver intended to shield himself from the rapidly escalating threats mounting against him. By stepping into the shadows as a confidential source, Pasquale provided investigators with unprecedented, real-time access to the inner workings of notorious street factions and sophisticated international syndicates. His unparalleled insider knowledge became the exact leverage law enforcement needed to systematically dismantle complex criminal networks. His quiet cooperation led directly to the apprehension and significant judicial sentencing of several high-profile, deeply entrenched figures. From the outside looking in, his flashy Instagram lifestyle appeared entirely undisturbed, but behind closed doors, he was actively tearing down the very world that had built him. However, the syndicate's ancestral code of silence, known as omerta, is absolute, and its retribution is unfathomable. It is an isolated environment where dangerous secrets are rarely kept for long, and soon, dark whispers of his betrayal began to circulate among rival factions. The high-profile hunter had officially become the hunted. In November of 2015, the terrifying reality of his dual life finally caught up with him. As he navigated the familiar streets near his Leichhardt residence, the quiet of the evening was abruptly shattered by 6 precise, rapid echoes. It was a highly targeted, calculated ambush designed to send a chilling, undeniable message. The prime suspect in this intense encounter was a known enforcer, with a fearsome reputation for finalizing underworld disputes, a man deeply entrenched in his own cycle of severe, retaliatory violence. Although Pasquale miraculously survived the attempt, emerging physically intact from the chaos, the psychological damage was profound and irreversible. The incident was a stark confirmation that his most closely guarded secret had been compromised. He was now navigating a perilous daily existence, where every passing vehicle hid a potential threat, and every former associate was a possible adversary. He had managed to outmaneuver the legal system for years, but outrunning the syndicates he had betrayed was an entirely different, deeply complex game of survival. The illusion of invincibility can only protect a man for so long, before reality inevitably catches up. On the evening of November 14, 2016, parked quietly outside an Earlwood residence, the carefully constructed walls of Pasquale Barbaro's dual life finally collapsed. As he sat inside his luxury Mercedes, an Audi Q7 pulled alongside his vehicle, a calculated, fatal act orchestrated with chilling precision. In a matter of moments, the high-profile informant's turbulent journey came to a sudden tragic halt. But for the lead investigators arriving at the solemn crime scene shortly after, The victim's passing was not merely the end of a generational saga. It was the opening chapter of one of the most complex digital manhunts in modern history. How does law enforcement systematically dismantle a highly sophisticated network that operates entirely in the shadows? The answer lay not on the dark streets, but hidden deep within layers of complex encrypted code. The perpetrators, a notorious crew led by a prominent underworld figure, believed they had executed the perfect, untraceable elimination. They operated with a twisted sense of desensitization, supremely confident that their digital footprints were invisible to authorities. However, they severely underestimated the persistent, highly advanced nature of modern detective work. Within weeks of the fatal event, a massive, covert surveillance operation was firmly set into motion. Investigators operated silently in the background, successfully placing listening devices in the crew's vehicles and private apartments, waiting patiently for the ultimate slip-up. The definitive breakthrough, however, required immense strategic patience and vital international cooperation. Years after the tragic event, authorities finally managed to crack the seemingly impenetrable encryption of the syndicate's customized mobile devices. The decrypted communications revealed a chilling, real-time narrative of the crime. A single, decisive transmission, sent mere moments after the fatal act, simply read, "It's done, we driving, pray we arrive safe." This undeniable piece of digital evidence became the undisputed cornerstone of the prosecution's case, transforming a baffling mystery into a definitive, airtight legal strike against the entire crew. The extensive courtroom proceedings that followed were conducted under strict suppression orders, underscoring the severe gravity and dangerous influence of the network involved. The syndicate's leader, who had personally orchestrated a months-long campaign of targeted eliminations, was ultimately handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole, with the presiding judge heavily condemning the profound severity of his actions. His inner circle received similarly devastating judicial verdicts, ranging from multi-decade terms to consecutive life sentences. The meticulous deduction by law enforcement had not only secured justice for the deceased, but had effectively dismantled a dangerous, digital-era empire. In the end, the very technology the crew relied upon to conceal their actions became the undeniable beacon that sealed their ultimate downfall.